Yes.
All right, so we can get going?
Shortly, we are live. So thanks everyone for joining us. We'll get started here in 1 or 2 minutes. All right. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. And thank you especially to our sponsors for today's sessions. A couple disclaimers before we get started. This session is being recorded and will be available to view on demand after this session completes. If you do not wish to participate in this recorded session now, please go ahead and disconnect. Otherwise, get ready for an outstanding trip down some value delivery for us. So you'll be placed in silent mode from here out. However, you can feel free to ask questions. You can submit them to the Q&A box within the Zoom platform here, or you can also use the social channels by leveraging the hashtag IIoTWorldDay. That's hashtag IIoTWorldDay. And please do submit your questions, comments throughout the session, because at the end of today, we're going to have a random drawing from all of our active participants to award a 1-year free complimentary pass to our VIP community here at IoT World. So without further ado, let's get the session started.
All right, thank you very much, and welcome. Wow, I feel like conquering the world in that thing. Welcome very much to everybody here on the this particular panel and around the world. Thank you very much for joining. Now, a little background on what we're going to be doing. Of course, we're going to have this agenda, and it's, of course, if you notice this fine drawing right over here, this ICS cybersecurity for O&G and manufacturing. That's what we're going to be talking about. We've got some great individuals that know their stuff. They got great cyber street cred in a big way. This is how it's going to roll. We're going to have a couple of presentations by Joe, Ed, and Richard. You'll know them. You'll know them. And then we're going to go into a sort of a general question type of flow. We're just going to start flowing and asking these questions and having the panel be able to explain a little bit about what that's all about. That's going to be a lot of fun. And then we're going to go into some polling questions, right? And then we're going to do all of that good stuff, right? And it makes sense. But the most important component of this particular event, and I just stress it in a big way, is that you interact, ask your questions, challenge this panel to be able to answer. Don't challenge me. Barna, don't challenge me. You're not going to get anywhere with that. But this panel, yeah, you're going to be able to challenge them and ask your questions. Please do so. Line yourself up for that, whatever that opportunity at the end and winning that year subscription. So those are the rules, but you got to be able to interact because we're all about collaborating. We're all about innovating. And we're all about education. And that's what this particular panel is all about. Okay, we're good. So the first question I want to ask before we really get into the whole thing is, who are you? And this is going to be a sort of a little poll. So who are you and where are you from? So let's sort of take a few moments of just sort of what is your role, where are you from, that type of thing. And then we're going to get back and we're going to start talking a little bit about the first presenter on the docket. All right. Keep going. Keep going. Don't let me down. Don't let this group down so that we can get going with the presentation. Let me know when we're ready to go, Greg, on that, the results of that, and then sort of communicate a little bit about what the results were. Boo doo boo boo. I like to sing in between, I guess. So, as I toggle through my stuff, just FYI, I want to make sure that I get all that information out there. All right. Okay. All right. So what do we got? We've got some cybersecurity practitioners. Looks like we got a number of people. There's a lot of other in there. That's what I see. There's a lot of good other in there. Whatever that means, Joe, I hope you know how to respond to others. So before we get, so let's talk a little bit about Joe, okay? Joe is an industry expert on control systems and electronic security and of control systems with more than 40 years of 40 years of experience in the energy industry. That's a lot. You got a lot of street cred out there. And of course, 14 of those years was with EPRI, the Electric Power Research Institute. Now, he's got some mad skills that are in nuclear and diagnostic programs, fossil fuels, go on and on. His stat card out there is quite lengthy, and I'm not going to read it. I'm going to make sure that you guys read it because you will not be disappointed with Joe. All right? All right, Joe, you're on the docket. Dazzle us.
Okay. Greg, move the slide. First of all, I also wanted to say thank you to Trend Micro, who's the sponsor of this. And I also wanted to thank everybody who's still here at 5 o'clock Eastern time. And I have no idea what other time zones in the world are on, but thank you for staying around for this. So my first slide I wanted to get into, because I thought it was really important after listening to all of the sessions that occurred today, is I think there's a number of definitions we need to be clear about. And the first one is a cyber incident, because that's kind of what we're talking about. The de facto IT definition is you're connected to the internet, you're running Windows, and data is maliciously being manipulated or stolen. It's about privacy and it's about malicious. The NIST FIPS 140 definition, which is the one I use, is electronic communication between systems that affects confidentiality, integrity, or availability. And notice there is no mention of the word malicious. Unfortunately, there's no mention of the word safety either. But the key point here is a control system cyber incident does not need to be malicious. And often we wouldn't know because a sophisticated hacker can make an equipment malfunction, a cyber attack look like an equipment malfunction, or it could just be, the intention. We have no way of measuring intent. So I wanted to start off by saying, this is what a cyber incident is. The other thing I also wanted to bring up that wasn't even here was IoT. The industrial world has been connecting things for 20 years. We're just lousy marketers. We never were able to come up with terms like IoT, Industry 4.0, smart grid, et cetera. But it's not like we're all of a sudden trying to connect things. I'm going to talk about the Purdue reference model because for the engineering side of the world, that's what we're really interested in, is where does the equipment stack up, as well as, if you will, you have the OSI 7-layer stack in terms of where the communication fits in. So with that, let me go on to the next slide. In fact, can you go one more, Greg? Greg, can you go? Okay. This is the Purdue reference model. What most people look at is from level 2 on up, from the PLC on up. I also worry about what's called level 0 and level 1. Level 0 is the process and the sensors that are operating in essentially real time. Level 1 is operating in the milliseconds to seconds. This is what is happening, if you will, behind the scenes. Level 2 is where most people think things start. That's your programmable logic controllers or your intelligent electronic devices. It's the controlling world, but it's getting all of this data coming up from 0, 1. And from there you go to the, if you will, to the control system networks. And that's on the order of seconds to minutes. You're moving up the chain through 3 to 4, where basically that's where you have your longer lived databases, and off to the business world or whatever. Generally, the gateway to the internet is thought as being what's called level 3.5, between 3 and 4. Now, Greg, can you go back now to the previous slide? Okay, now, having given that, this is what a typical control system looks like. As you go from right to left, you're essentially going from level 5 down to level 0. And as you're going from right to left, it's IT migrating closer and closer to control systems. So prior to Stuxnet, of which I think most people have heard, cybersecurity ended where you see that control room. Because of Stuxnet, cybersecurity started moving down into the programmable logic controller area. Today, there is still no cybersecurity authentication or cyber logging when you get down to the control valve sensors, motor controls, the actual control devices themselves. And one of the things I want to get out of this, which is really important and part of why you have the three of us on this panel, is you've got to address the network, which you've heard all day, but you also have to address the process and the sensors and the engineering part, which again, that's part of what Ed is going to go through. And what you also have, like I say, security exists up to and through the programmable logic controller area. Security, cybersecurity and cyber logging really does not exist today when you get down to the level 0, level 1s. Next slide. Okay. Now, this is my slide that basically says, yes, control system cyber incidents are real. There's been that I've been able to document, well over 1,250 actual incidents. They range from significant environmental discharges, major equipment damage, major, we're talking region-wise electric outages, etc. There's been over 1,500 deaths to date, well over $70 billion in direct damage. This is very real. There are very few control system specific cybersecurity technologies, training, and policies. Part of what we're doing is trying to bring all of this together. There are well over 2 million control system devices directly connected to the internet and counting. This number really goes back 2 or 3 years. So you can imagine what that is now. Many of these are gateways. Now, I'm going to just kind of go through real quick what you see here. On the far upper left corner is complete destruction of a turbine. As best as we can tell, this was an actual malicious attack. Regardless, this is very real. It's control system cyber regardless. Top middle is the Aurora hardware demonstration test at the Idaho National Lab where they destroyed the diesel generator. Far upper right is the DC Metro Red Line train crash that killed 11. Yes, it was control system cyber. No, it wasn't malicious. And by the way, the same cause that happened with the DC Metro train crash happened the night before with the Boston MTA, though in this case, we were lucky nobody was hurt. Bottom left rather, is the San Bruno natural gas pipeline rupture that killed 8. And by the way, PG&E is now a convicted felon because of that event. Central is the Bellingham, Washington Olympic pipeline rupture. Killed 3. Interesting part of this, 3 people went to jail because they refused to cooperate with NTSB, National Transportation Safety Board. And again, from some of the earlier conversations today, the Olympic Pipeline Company, which is a joint venture in Shell and Texaco, went bankrupt because of this. So if you're asking, is there really financial implications? Yes. Middle right is Marucci. That's the sewage discharge in Australia, where they dumped roughly 1 million liters, I think it was 1 million liters of sewage on the grounds of a Hyatt Regency. The perpetrator was caught the 46th time. He remotely opened the discharge valve. He was caught on a traffic stop. He was sentenced to a couple of years in jail. Bottom left was the tilting of an offshore oil rig by hacking the buoyancy system. Middle, complete destruction of a 6,400 megawatt hydro facility. In this case, lifted a 1,000-ton turbine right off its pedestal. 75 people were killed. The Russians initially thought we did this. We almost went to war. Far right, brand new Navy ship that didn't even make it to its home port because of control system cyber issues that damaged the propulsion system. So part of this is saying, this is not just oil, gas, and manufacturing. This is across the board. Next slide. Here are just some recent cyber incidents. This is meant literally to bring us into the rest of the discussions, but for people to understand how real this really is. July 23rd, NSA and DHS CISA issued an alert. It was about, the IoT networks and ICS. Essentially, and you had to read between the lines, a PLC had been at least one, if not more, was connected directly to the internet. And they were able to get in and change the ladder logic. This is a very big deal. Again, why we're doing all of this. Executive Order 13920, that was what was issued May 1st. This is when the Chinese put hardware backdoors directly into large electric equipment. Essentially, almost a Stuxnet on us. What they did is essentially put in remote command and control directly into the equipment. Part of why I focus on sensors. A year ago, Yokogawa put out a notification to their customers. They were finding counterfeit pressure and differential pressure sensors in our systems. I had put a blog out on that because I called all of the other vendors who had been seeing similar things. So when people want to ignore this, you're really ignoring this at your own peril. Again, just to show how big this is, and you're talking about manufacturing, found a complete shadow sensor network in a pharma facility going directly back to China. In a sense, we were hoping it was just stealing data and not actually trying to compromise the systems. Lots of discussion. There was a whole discussion about disclosure. We had a drinking water hack that I was made aware of maybe about 3 or 4 months ago. This is in the US. This is somebody who had hacked into a drinking water system and was changing pump settings and set points. The reason I found out is this was coming from the federal public defender, of which I'd never even heard of one before. He had already been found guilty. He was in his sentencing. And what they wanted to find, or what the federal public defender was trying to say is, hey, he was only in there for less than an hour. What harm could he do? This case was not public. The Water ISAC and AWWA were totally unaware of this. When we have control system cyber incidents, they're not public. Obviously, there have been multiple ransomware attacks. They affect control systems, generally indirectly. And we've had multiple, and I showed this before, catastrophic failures that were not attributed to cyber. Many of them you'll find in textbooks on safety. Why? Because the safety people weren't trying to go back and connect it to cyber. Next. And I just wanted to talk, this is the last one, that's really talking about why it's so critical to be monitoring the 0-1s and having that tied, if you will, to the network monitoring. These are counterfeits or knockoffs of major equipment. And these are really big issues. They are very big safety issues. They're very big reliability issues. We have to have a way of knowing what's going on. Next. So anyways, Ed, I'm going to turn this over to you, and then we'll all be available for questions following. Thank you.
All right, Ed, you're up. By the way, just a reminder of everybody out there, just FYI. We want to make sure that you are submitting your Q&As, right? You get 12 months free of access of the VIP community, and you got to be a part of VIP. That's important stuff. The drawing will happen at the end of this particular panel, and it will be sort of this randomizer, wheel of name type of approach. Submit your question, because I'm telling you right now, right off, Joe, I've got a ton of questions, Joe, but I'm not going to bogart this particular panel, but I've got a ton of questions. How do I get out of bed? You just scared the hell out of me. All right. Enough of that. All right. Just 1 second. Ed Turkala. Did I say that right, Ed?
No, Turkley. Ed Turkley.
That's
Okay.
right. All right. Global industrial cybersecurity architect, NEXUS Controls. Once again, he's got more than 16 years of cybersecurity experience. Ed provides strategic solutions, expert guidance, grounded in the position of risk management and safety. Another a cyber, incredible guy. It's all up to you, Ed. Take it away from me. And to submit your doggone questions. That's what's important.
Thank you very much. And thank you, Trend Micro, for putting on this event and sponsoring. So my goal today is to help you understand the big picture and as Joe is describing it as well, and hopefully simplify it down a bit to the specific areas where we have what I call tightly coupled systems that present both a opportunity and a risk. So as I'm with NEXUS Controls, so it's a Baker Hughes business. And for those of you that are new to us, we've been serving our customers for more than a century. We're an energy technology company. We leverage multiple turbine and compressor control platforms and distributed control systems, DCS systems, along with cybersecurity, which we're talking about today, but also excitation, mechanical, instrumentation controls globally. So that's a long time for us, for over a century, and that does make us a little bit different than an IT company. So next slide about our industrial history, please. So, our business and experience spanning over 150 years, this is a very long time and very different than an IT company. And we are probably a hidden secret sauce because of the fact that we've changed our names so many times, being with Woodward, GE, and Baker Hughes. But the point is, we've been here all along, and we've got this extensive install base and experience, including cybersecurity, and really anything involved with a turbine control is where we play in our cybersecurity offerings. So whether that's in power generation, whether that's in nuclear, whether that's in heavy manufacturing or renewable, wind, either offshore or onshore, chemical processing, pulp and paper, and a lot more. But next slide, please, on our cybersecurity history. So the cybersecurity history of us, the industrial history is much longer than the cybersecurity history, but what makes us unique is that we are a pure play industrial cybersecurity company. And the reason for that is it's important, and as Joe is saying, to integrate safely and reliably so that we don't negatively impact the process control. In fact, for our business, HSE, or health, safety, and environment, is core to our license to even operate. Very different than an IT company. So this is not the confidentiality, integrity, and availability traditional IT speak that we play in here. We're talking about validating cybersecurity into safe configurations that work in the process control. All right, so let's go to our next slide on the portfolio here. And just real quickly, so you know who we are, we do have a large cybersecurity portfolio, and it's been innovative over many, many times. In fact, the only thing we really don't do is sell cybersecurity insurance, but we can help customers who have many different risk levels. So go to the next slide on portfolio 2, and you can see that we're OEM agnostic in how we treat cybersecurity at the industrial plant. However, Trend Micro plays a very important role here in our partner ecosystem, and including the advancement of protection through zero-day threat initiatives, including virtual patching, as well as playing a critical role in what we're going to zoom in here now on a little bit is called micro-segmentation. And transient devices, like I have right here, is a transient device protection USB stick. It lights up in the end when there's malware, very easy to use device. And whitelisting and things like that. So protection of legacy equipment, because we have a life cycle challenge in the industrial world. And it's important to recognize that. And the mechanical equipment is going to be there for 10 to 20 years. The cybersecurity life cycle is daily. So how do we merge those two things together so that we're here for the long run to provide a safe, reliable solution is what this is all about. So if you go to portfolio 3 or the third slide here, let us align a bit on Joe's topic and focus more on micro-segmentation, as this word means many things to different people. And I see we have some folks from the IT community on this call. When we think of micro-segmentation, you think of firewalls, maybe you think of north, south, up, down segmentation from the internet and down below to more granular layers. But for us, micro-segmentation is a lot more, east, west as well, or between equipment and controls. And role-based access control may play a part with that. Two-factor authentication may play a part of micro-segmentation, but we're going to kind of go a little bit more deeper than that today, and where Trend Micro helps us here. But this is still really what Joe was talking about, because industrial micro-segmentation, not IT micro-segmentation, but industrial micro-segmentation is very different. This is built into the manufacturing zone of the Purdue model, and to be able to separate things like the PLC, the I/O between HMIs, or down at the sensor and valve and control node. And this is the challenge for our industry today, because as you think about cybersecurity of attacks from the outside coming in, but they're also from the very bottom coming up. So let's move to the critical attack points slide. I want to make 3 points here. When you build a plant, a power plant or a pipeline or anything that's moving a product that's a process control, what do you think the policies and procedures of the plant derive from? You think they're from corporate IT, or do you think they're from NIST, or from NERC, or from ISA? They're not. They're not from there. They actually, what drives the creation of that plant really is called the process description and the control system narrative. And it's what the plant does at a high level and how it performs that in detail under adverse conditions. So very different thinking than IT. And what those two things do is they ensure HSE, health, safety, and the environment. The point number two is that industrial microsegmentation is very different. You know, the key word being industrial, as this is built into that manufacturing zone, segmenting things like the IO and PLC, sensors, valves, control nodes. But, and what Joe was saying is that the process of normal detection, or, you know, is looking from the, you know, we want to look from the bottom up and identify those things, as this is much more catastrophic if this were to occur within these plants. And this is where plant operators work really well. We need to give them a lot of credit, right? They understand the HSE and the impact and the consequences, but they don't understand the likelihood sometimes. And to help you illustrate this a little bit more, you know, in cybersecurity, for you information security folks out there, there's a thing called a salami attack. It's a series of minor little cyber attacks, low and slow, that together result in a much larger attack, right? Well, a sensor drift could be thought of as similar to that in my mind. It doesn't necessarily have to be even cyber. It could be physical. It probably could be from a slowly degrading sensor, right? And, or maybe, as Joe pointed, a shadow device. Like shadow IT, we have shadow OT, or operational technology. It could be a switch, a media converter, or something like that. You have to consider the consequences if the gas turbine, for example, falsifies its data, and the signal it sends to the DCS operator is therefore to speed up the turbine, right? Simple example. This is a very complicated environment with a lot of real-time mission critical systems. And we're talking about boilers, emission control, turbines, valve banks, water treatment plants, compressors, catapult truck fleet management systems, or slope systems that make sure the mine doesn't fall in on itself, that kind of thing. So point number three on this is that industrial customers, our customers, they tend to really understand what the impact could be, but they don't understand the likelihood, okay? And this is the role that, you know, we play as a business to help our customers really link that. And different stakeholders see it differently, whether the chief security officer, who at the end of the day is responsible and accountable, or the plant manager, or the engineer. They all see likelihood different. And it's important to sort that out when you go through these security assessments. All right, so last slide here. Our motto is you produce, we protect. It's because that we understand the difference in industrial cybersecurity versus IT security. Look, we have inherent security risks because we have legacy equipment. We'll always have legacy equipment. I'm vulnerable, you're vulnerable. Infrastructure is going to be vulnerable. It's not going to be replaced overnight. It's very, very expensive. It's going to be here for the long run. So we have that challenge, and we have to protect that. Then we have limited expert resources in the field, on the plant floor. We have limited resources and expertise just in the industrial environment, not just in the cybersecurity environment. And the challenge is providing a solution that's fit for purpose, which means not overspending it, because cybersecurity is could be overspent very easily, right? So we want to make sure that solution is going to be here for the long run with partners like Trend Micro, who are going to be here for the long run, right? Because we can't always do the thing that's going to be bought up by a merger or acquisition. We need to think, again, that 10 to 20 year life cycle, and provide that modern technology to protect against these sophisticated human adversaries. So I'll see you in the Q&A. I hope you asked some really good questions. I hope that helps frame it a bit more, and I'll let Richard get more in depth. Thank you.
All right, I've got a couple of Q&As that or questions that are out there, and I think that we can address them right now. This is from Paige, and this is to you, Joe, so unmute yourself. How many industry attacks are unknown sources? Where did it go? I'm sorry. unknown sources. Any ideas? Unknown sources. That's her question.
Yeah, the part of the question there is when you say unknown sources, number one, most of the cases I have are unintentional, but also realize there is minimal control system cyber forensics when you get below the internet protocol layer. And there's almost no training for the engineers in terms of recognizing things. So I haven't tried to ask, or, in a lot of this, I'm not going to have the details get down to quote unquote unknown sources. What I can tell you is a little bit different, is that we've had a lot of incidents that if you were to have asked, excuse me, ahead of time, could they have occurred? I would have told you no. An example was, and this is really a great one for between IT and the control system world. A facility that had repowered a switch, and following the repowering of the switch, they ended up losing all control system logic in every single one of their over 200 plant distributed control system processors. So with the plant at power, that plant lost all command, control, diagnostics, and safety. And it turns out that that same type of thing had occurred at a number of other facilities from different switch vendors and different DCS vendors. So we're looking at things that we never thought could happen before. So this may not be a direct answer because I haven't tried to categorize, quote unquote, what the exact source was. The only thing I tried to categorize was it known malicious or not known malicious.
Okay, very good, very good. We've got one more question, and then we're going to spread out these questions. This to you, Ed. This is also from Paige. And do you have your own internal certification program to vet ICS vendors?
Yes, we do. We have our own internal certification program. We leverage the ISA, IEC framework primarily, as well as NIST. We're a global company, so to be perfectly honest, we have to meet every global compliance framework, which means whatever region they are coming from, okay? And so we have extensive experience with that. We have the IEC 62443 2-4 and 3-3 certifications already for our business, which means we can deliver a solution at a SIL level 3, which is a very high level and unique. We do also, provide the training that we need for our operators to use the cybersecurity equipment that we provide them during what's called, especially during what's called an FAT, a factory acceptance test. Different than IT, operators need to see the equipment. It's called a human machine interface for a reason. They have to kind of adjust to the way, the look, the feel, and they have to, make sure they're getting the right information from that process control. During that time, we can do things like insert malware into our equipment or unpower or switch to make sure that it's fully available. We also host our customers in a cage, literally a physical cage, because we have to also confirm the nuclear cybersecurity specifications. And as soon as that asset's digitalized or has electricity put in it, it becomes a critical digital asset. So we have to think not just of not just for the products we're selling, but the process by which we commission the product to our customer. So I hope that answers your question.
All right, Richard, you're going to be on deck. Let's. Here's his stat card. Richard, he's the Senior VP, Commercial IoT Business and Market Development. That's a heck of a title, Richard. All right, he's been working in the cybersecurity industry with Trend Micro for about 28 years, working on a number of leading roles and industrial contributors to management positions. Again, another stellar individual, Richard. Don't let, I mean, you've got a tremendous group to try to beat in this one. Don't let us down, okay? All right, Richard, you're up.
Thanks, Scott. And well, first of all, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everyone, wherever you're calling from. Hope everyone is staying safe. I think in the past, some of you might have heard of me talking about some of the best practice and guidance, and those sort of topics for, industrial control, environment or different verticals. But today, I want to introduce everyone to the Trend Micro and the TX1 network, industrial control, and OT cybersecurity solution. So that's what I'm going to be talking today, and how partner like NEXUS Control actually utilize our solution and basically provide to their customer through their transformation. So that's what we're going to be discussing today. The next slide. For those of you who don't know much about Trend Micro, we've been around for around 30 years, and we are probably one of the very few pure play security provider, both on the IT and industrial control side, right? I think there are many companies, but now everybody's been basically bought or merged with some very big company. But for us as a company, we have been around, right? And that's all we focus on, is basically on cybersecurity. We are a Japanese-based company headquartered in Tokyo, but we do have, basically a global operation out of the US. And currently we have a little bit over 6,700, employees who are very, very passionate, right, about dealing with cybersecurity. And of course, we operate across, 65 different countries all around the world. So that's kind of a little bit information about us. The one thing I want to talk about is also who is TX1 Networks, right? Actually, TX1 Network is a sister company. It's a joint venture between Trend Micro and Moxa, right? And basically bringing our 30 years experience in cybersecurity and their 30 years of OT network, basically design in the networking on the OT environment. And by combining these two organizations, we have created some really, really exciting new products, to the market. Next slide, please. So a little bit about Trend Micro, some of our experience, right? So as you may be aware, today we have more than 1,200, research all around the world across multiple time zones. And, we are doing a lot of research across different technology, everything from OT, ICS, cybersecurity research to your traditional consumer IoT, AI, 5G, research, especially around, some of this technology, what are some of the vulnerabilities and what are some of the potential risks, to organizations as they start to adopt some of this new technology, right? So we do a lot of those, and we have published many reports around that topic, at these topics as well. So you're welcome to come to our website. You can download many of this white paper. The other area that I want to talk a little bit, and Ed mentioned a little bit about virtual patching, right? As you know, the ZDI lab, or it's a part of the Trend Micro, and we call it our 0-day initiative. And this is an organization that is completely independent, from Trend Micro. And we work with more than 1,400, researchers all around the world, right? And basically really helping to understand what are some of the vulnerability out there. And basically they're making those vulnerabilities available to us. And then we can basically need to vet some of these issues and, basically, help these researchers to take some of this vulnerability and, provide to the, device vendors. And we also published a bunch of basically policies and virtual patching, pattern, for many of the customers. So, this type of vulnerability is actually very helpful, especially on the industrial control side, because, we definitely want to make sure that, we provide many of these customers early events or early notice and even early patches to them before a patch is even coming available from the device vendor, right? So that's one area that we spend a lot of time on, is that, researchers. And of course, our TX1 is really kind of focused on, specialized on industrial control cybersecurity. right? And that's really kind of what we do. And, we built everything from the ground up and very focused to make sure that we design the product and purpose designed for this type of environment versus kind of your traditional IT environment. Because from my experience working with many customers, we have seen, customer where they try to deploy IT product and service into the OT environment, right? And sometimes does not always give them a good experience, or does not always, give them the best solution, because, the risk of deploying IT product on the OT environment can be very, harmful to them as well. Our technologies are very much proven technologies, right? We have ranked by Gartners and many of the, analysts out there as market leaders. And we have many, many large enterprise customers. As you can see here, 9 out of the top 10 Fortune Global 500 actually using Trend Micro across a combination of IT, OT environment, right? So this is just a little bit about us and who we are and what kind of experience we have over the last, 30 years. Next slide, please. Now, Joel already talked about some of this, but I do want to, let everyone know that, the industrial attacks is real, right? It's not just a lot of talk, a lot of, social media and, a lot of email back and forth between, you see, online. But, for us, we keep track of all the incident across both IT environment as well as the industrial environment. And this just is a sample of some of the incident, started back in 2010, which Joe kind of talked about the Stuxnet, right? This is where, they tried to compromise some of the Iran nuclear power plant and, causing about 20% of the damage to the centrifuge, right? So this is just one example. And then, back, and just very recently, like in 2018 and 2019, you can see really all this different type of cyber attacks are, really kind of continue to evolve and continue to affect, organization, both the, different vertical from power to, water, to, manufacturing. You can see here's all the different type of attacks and the level of damage. So we'll share the slide deck with you, and you can also look through a little bit more detail. Next slide. All right, so that's kind of just a little bit history about Trend Micro, but now I want to kind of talk specifically around our solution, right? The Trend Micro TX1 NEXUS Adaptive OT ICS security solution. Next, please. So as I mentioned earlier, one of the things that we have tried to learn from, our experience is that, taking an IT product and try to deploy it in OT environment, does not always work, right? And so our goal as, an organization is to really kind of purposely build this product from the ground up, right? To make sure that, we really address the, safety, the availability, reliability of the system. Of course, integrity and, all those things still are an important role, but, for this product, you have to really focus on the safety, the availability and reliability of the system, which is very critical, on the, ICS or OT environment, right? I mean, in the IT side, if you take, if let's say you have a system that go down, may not be such a big deal, right? But, on the, ICS on the OT side, if you're bringing up PLCs or you're taking some of the system down, that could be, millions of dollars, or, could be, could cost people, life, right? So it's very important that the product that we built here is really designed for that, right? So some of the capability we try to provide is, we discussed a lot about a shadow OT, right? In a, OT environment. And so we want to make sure that we provide our customer visibility across all the assets, the different protocol and command, and even the threat intelligence across the OT networks. We want to make sure that we provide some real-time protection and enforcement to prevent this type of security breach with minimum overhead, right? As you know, some of the systems are very old and doesn't have a lot of memory, and it's been around for decades. And you do have to build the right product for this. And of course, we want to make sure that we keep the operational continue to running without having any impact on it. One of the things that we try to do, I think, compared to many other companies, is that we try to provide what we call a defense in depth solution, right? A comprehensive protection at all level of the OT networks, and we'll talk about that, and I'll try to map that into the Purdue models on the next couple of slides. And one of the things that we have is also our solution, right, is actually designed to fit into your existing, IT or OT infrastructure in operation, right? Not necessarily you have to rip and replace. That is, because as Ed mentioned, many of these systems have been around for decades, right? And and they will probably continue to use for a couple, decades. And so we need to make sure that we continue to support that and allow them to go through that, transformation, of their environment. So that's something we are also provided. And of course, we have a central management that allows you to have basic complete distribution, deployment of some of this solution, as well as the ability to see, and provide visibility across your OT networks. And some of this threat intelligence can also be integrated into your SIEM or your SOAR, right? SOC platform, if you have some of those. So on a high level, this is something that we have provided. Next slide, please. Next slide, Greg. Hello?
There we go.
Right. So now let's a little bit more detail into the product level, right? And so these are two set of solutions that we have. We have a set of product, our network product really designed for basically big flat networks without proper segmentation, right? And of course, it looks like your screen's a little bit distorted, right? And then of course, these are for unpatched vulnerability devices. And also if you have a weak authentication or non-encrypted communication for your POC or auto SCADA system, right? So this is the networking product we provide, and we'll talk about that a little bit more. The other set of product is our endpoint solution, right? So this endpoint solution really designed to protect your conventional, system, maybe at level 3, right, on the Purdue models, or even some of your, HMI machine that run in Windows environment. But typically the endpoint product that we really bring into the market is really designed for legacy system, right, with old operating system, with limited computing powers and no internet connection or connectivities, and also many other transit machines. So we'll talk about that a little bit more in the next slide. All right, next slide, please, Greg.
We've got a little situation where the slide disappeared. Why don't we do this? And as we attempt to work and fix that, let's answer some questions. And I might as well just keep it rolling here real quick. And I would imagine this is from, and if I mispronounce names, please don't hold it against me. I'm a nice guy. Leonardo Lee, what makes microsegmentation in OT different from IT, the North and the South versus East and West?
I'd like to answer that, or try to,
Please,
and
Ed.
see if Joe can back me up. First of all, legacy systems is a challenge in this environment. We're talking about communication protocols that are real-time in nature, that are generally using broadcast traffic, UDP, that are not designed to be secure or end-to-end or encrypted. And because of that, especially around legacy systems, you have, for example, a collection of machines that are just all receiving, information and displaying it to the operator in real time on your HMIs. So when you do microsegmentation in that kind of environment, you need to think very carefully what you're segmenting, because you don't want to prevent an alarm, for example, from making it to the operator. Another one is that you have to understand it's not just the Ethernet network that you traditionally are looking at here. It's the I/O, the backbone. We're talking controllers that have multiple PLCs in the rack that are field wired out to hundreds and hundreds of sensors, actuators, control nodes, whatever. This is an area that is generally even a layer below the IT or the Ethernet side. And so microsegmentation in there really, really greatly depends on the OEM and the manufacturer. They may be connected to they may have for example, a safety system here alongside the I/O of a control system, and the way in which they communicate together might be an area where you do microsegmentation, or a distributed control system, taking data from the generation system. Here we might, insert things to prevent that data from going bidirectional. But you have to know what you're doing. This is not an IT environment. Hope that helps.
I just wanted to add kind of a little bit different twist, but it's exactly where Ed was going. There has been a prevailing thought that you have these higher level of security systems, and you're trying to protect them from this lower level of security systems. But in the control system world, we have an awful lot of exchange between systems or devices on the same security level.
Yep.
And this is kind of the east-west issue. The north-south, it's kind of easy to say, hey, I don't want my, safety system talking to the internet. But like Ed says, we have got lots of systems and components that are feeding multiple systems, all of which are, in a sense, of equal security significance, or in a sense, equal operational significance. So the idea of trying to, the segmentation is different and important when you're talking in a control system environment.
Hey, the one thing I just want to add into this is that, in many of this environment, right, because it's such a flat networks, right, and the idea of microsegmentation is really to help you to basically isolate all the critical system, right, and make sure that if one of the system are being compromised by the hackers or by adversary, right, those critical system does not impact the other one, right? So that's also, we have seen that quite a bit, and many of the networks are very flat. So that and this solution we bring it to market allow you to do that. It allows you basically segment, also aggregate some of the critical system into one area, and so that when you have a compromise, you don't have to worry about the other one being compromised at the same time as well.
Hope that answers your question, Leonard. And Richard, you're back on.
All right, so now let's drill down a little bit into some of the solution that we have today, right? So these are the product portfolio for our ICS and OT environment. The very first two products we have, they are networking product, which I mentioned earlier. And these are security appliance, right, to help you basically do, basically segment, your network and allow you to create this type of zero trust protection between the different segment. They're very simple to deploy, and it can run, on the rack or any kind of cabinet, and it's very robust, right? It's designed to work on the industrial, basically area where you have a lot of high temperature, right, and can survive through long NTBF, as well as fail safe without interrupting the production if any of the systems go down, or if any of the system fail, right? So this is kind of our Edge IPS and also Edge Fire. The other product we have is a product called Portable Security. This is a USB malware scan. It's very simple to use, right? And it doesn't need anything to be installed. And the whole idea for this is really designed for environment where you have off-grid, or maybe your air gap environment, or you have transit machine, or you have a contractor who actually come into your networks and they want to perform some upgrade and stuff like that, right? You want to be to make sure that those systems are also compliant, and so you can actually use this USB to basically scan your environment and those devices, make sure it's actually completely safe and be in compliance with that. So those are very also critical system, and so we have this product. And the other product we have, it's a product called SafeLock, right? And this is a endpoint security solution, but it's not like your traditional anti-malware product, right? It's more of a lockdown, or we call whitelisting technology. And it is designed to basically lock down those critical systems. As I mentioned earlier, as we all know, in the ICS OT environment, many of these systems are very old, have been around for decades, right? And you have old operating system like Windows XP. We even see situation where people running Windows 2000, Windows NT, right? And those basically have a lot of vulnerability and no patches. But the operator or the customer will continue to use that for many more years. And so the only way to secure those environments is to really lock down this system and make sure that you are only allow the right application and the approved application to run on those systems. Anything beyond your approved list of application, you will not allow it to run, right? So, and this product also really kind of designed from the ground up to make sure that it can operate in a very low cost, but also can have very minimal or no impact into those kind of system, right? And it basically allows you to do that without any kind of full-blown installation like your traditional anti-malware products. Next slide, please, great. So a little bit more insight also into our networking, product line, right? So, this is come in several form factors, or we have, it come in a form factor of a physical appliance as well as a virtual appliance, right? And you can see here, we have multiple, form factors. We have your single segment that can go up to about 200 megabits per second, right? And then of course, next level, if you are on a, let's say 12, 24, 36, or 40x segment, we can go up to basically 10 gigabits to 20 gigabits and can support basically rack mount. And this particular one more designed for kind of east-west traffic, right, at the perimeter. But the previous product, your single segment maybe is more down at the level 2 or even level 1. And we'll talk about that as we map into the Purdue model. And then we have our edge, Fire, which is a 2 WAN and 8 LAN interface with 200 megabits per second, right? And this also support basically NAT, as well as you can survive in a very harsh environment, and it can fit in the type of cabinet. And across all this product, right, every of this product can be managed and through a central management console, what we call the operation technology control center, which is our OT defense console, and basically to provide you the ability to basically have complete visibility across your OT networks, give you basically asset visibility as well as the operational security events. And like I said, it can be integrated with any of your SIEM platform as well. Next slide, please. So HIPS and H5, right? We talk a lot about these two products and how effective the internal microsegmentation or shielding is. We talk about, but basically, as I mentioned, this really kind of help you to divide kind of your flat networks, like level 2 networks, into a more secure segment. We're going to mention that a little bit, but one of the unique things that we really provide for this is that this is a capability we call virtual patch, right? And this is a capability that we built into most of our products, including our Edge Fire and Edge IPS, where and when a vulnerability is discovered, right? And it's been published. And then what we'll typically do is we will provide a temporary signature or until to the customer until the OEM release their patches, right? And so this gives you that time to make sure that your system continues to be secure and protected, right? And it also allows you to basically contain some of the latest potential threat into your environment, and it shield your device from many of these vulnerable devices. As well as we also inspect and support many of the protocol like your SMB, RDD, and stuff like that. And then one other feature we provide is kind of what we call the OT protocol whitelisting, right? And so you will be able to allow which protocol to come into your networks, and you allow basically rewrite and stuff like that, right? So this is something that we also provide as part of our capability in the Edge IPS and our Edge Fire products. Next slide, please. All right. In addition, right, this HIPS and H-Fire, it is, ICS in OT aware operational intelligence, right? So again, there's the provide you asset and protocol visibilities, and we allow you to basically control the different level of access control right through your device. I mentioned about the protocol, like, Modbus, Ethernet, IP, right? Many of these protocol we support across different verticals, as well as your control and command, right? And also we allow it to basically have a greatly lower the possibility of any type of denial service by like a Trojan or some type of attack. And so, one example I can tell everyone is that, as you guys may be aware, a lot of companies have been compromised by the WannaCry, right? And WannaCry actually using a specific, basically vulnerability, and and through a port 445. And when this particular vulnerability was, discovered and was published, many organizations was very concerned. And so all the customers actually using our solution basically were able to download our virtual patching and be able to apply that into many of the environments. So and they are protected and shielded from this kind of threat. So this is just a good example on the WannaCry on how you can actually protect this until the OEM vendor actually provide the actual patch to you. Our next slide, please. I talked about state lock already. I think we want to skip this slide, Greg. And then, of course, one of the things that we do besides, all the things I talk about on a portable security is also give you basically a level of health check, right? And you can also, one of the things that I want to mention here is the ability to support both Windows and Linux environment, right? In many of these environment like OT, right? They are Linux environment, and you will have the ability to basically scan some of the system, both at a native mode or actually at a pre-boot mode. So you can actually boot the your Linux system or your Windows system through this USB stick, and you can actually perform a scan of that system and on a pre-boot mode. So you can basically scan those as well. So it does support both Windows and Linux. Next slide, please. So this is kind of maybe second to last slide, but you had heard about, Joe talking about the Purdue model, right? And I wanted to kind of map, our security solution and where it fit into this, Purdue model. So you can see here, this is a very high level, what I call an architecture diagram. On the right side is kind of your traditional IT environment, starting at the endpoint, server, email, and gateway, and then into the cloud. And on the left side, which is kind of your Purdue model, which Joe mentioned, starting at the level 0 and then go up to level 1, 2, and 3, right? From the sensors and device and actuator and up to the control networks, to the supervisory, and then of course the operation and control. And then what we are seeing a lot also is the cloud, right? Which is an area that we have been very focused on as well. So you can see from at the lowest level, level 0, we do provide several security solutions, right? We have our own, Trend Micro IoT security solution. And this is something that Ed and Joe have been discussing about micro segmentation at the device level or sensor level. How do you address those kind of issues? And the only way to do is really kind of build security right into the device itself. So we have capability that allow many of the device manufacturers to do that. Now, if you want to move up to, let's say, hey, at the level 2 or level 1, right, and where you are your PLC, your DCS in those systems, then that's where you have our HIPS and Fire can allow it to basically, you need to put in front of your PLCs or your DCS a one-to-one relationship, right? Or you can even put in front of your HMI machine, if you like, or your SCADA system, and that's a one-to-one relationship. Or if you say, hey, I want to put your, our HIPS at the segment level, basically, and make sure that every traffic, everything pass through can get filtered and check for any type of malicious attacks. You could do that as well. So that's kind of solution that we can map into that. Many of the lockdown product can be deployed onto your HMI machine, especially at level 2 or 2.5. That, like I said, our Save Lock product can be deployed there. 3 additional other product I did not mention, but it's also critical as part of our portfolio is, as we all know, right, many organizations do have an operational kind of control area. And in this particular area, especially in level 3 or 3.5, most of these people are really running your traditional Windows or Linux or basically virtualization or containing environment, right? And so we do have product that actually fit really well into this, and we have a couple of products here. Deep security product can support your on-premise hybrid cloud or cloud environment, right? And then of course our Apex One, which is our endpoint security solution, which can be deployed on your traditional Windows environment or your desktop environment. And then last but not least, our tipping point product, which is our very high-end, robust, next generation IPS product. They can sit between your IT, OT networks, right? So that's east-west traffic. And so that's just information for you guys to know, but those are additional products that we have. And that is mapped into the Purdue model. Next slide, please. Yeah, so this is kind of my last slide. I hope that gives you guys an quick overview, highlight as to some of the product that we are bringing to market. And it's available now. Many of the customer, actually listen to a lot of, there was a presentation, even for my presentation in the past, where we talk about a lot of things about best practice, but they don't really see a real solution, right? So this is what we're bringing to the market. And, some of the key takeaway is that, as we all know, right, cyber attacks on the ICS or OT environment are real, right? And can well affect, and significantly impact your business. So, don't treat it as though it's just a, one-off thing where I'll get to it when I see it. But, from our experience over the last 30 years, we are seeing many organizations be impacted, and it had really caused significant business challenge for them. And one thing is also cybersecurity is the foundation of any of your transformation or digital transformation. Right? I have seen this industry, at least on the IT side, going from your desktop to your client server architecture to kind of the internet and cloud virtualization. And every transformation that happened, we see the threat, right, and the threat vectors continue to evolve, and the threat continue to be more sophisticated, right? And so this is the same thing for the ICS OT environment, right? We are just in the, I would say, beginning of this type of transformation, and we're definitely going to see more and more attacks coming in the near future. So my encouragement to everyone is to be vigilant, right, and always be in front of your, the bad guys, and really make sure that you have the right resource, right people, right, and the right technology to really address some of this concern, especially on the OT side. And of course, last but not least, we as a company, we partner with folks like NEXUS Controls, right, and we are equipped to help you guys, through that transformation. And people like NEXUS Controls are expert in that, right? They understand the different environment in how to deploy solution in a much more safe and reliable way. So I hope this can help you guys to understand what's happening and what kind of solution we're bringing to the market. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Richard. And we're going to have to take a little sort of an adjustment with the agenda. I want to give it, if agreed to, if people want to, I'd love to get through the questions that we have. We have 4 more questions. I asked the panel to be quick about it so that we can wrap it up, and we can then hand it over to IIoT World and go for that opportunity for the gift. Okay, you guys ready, panel? Please.
Ready.
Yep.
I don't know who this goes to. How do you manage, which is a pretty cool name, how do you manage gray hole attack on IoT networks?
So I'll jump into that. So one way is by separating the IoT from the controlled, trusted network. And it can be through multiple things, through critical system gateway, next-gen firewall, an IDS, IPS, or maybe a data dive, but the solution is based off, the different risk level the customer has. And basically placing it in an untrusted zone, right? Not the trusted zone. But if it's on the trusted side, and that's the environment we're in, then network baselining and whitelisting intrusion prevention systems to identify or prevent the non-normal communication will be a way to enforce and identify and block the abnormality and the kill chains that may be correlated from that and based off an asset identification as well too.
All right, Rashid. Thank you very much for submitting that particular question, and thank you, Ed, for answering. This is from, I'm going to butcher it, Arthi, and I'm not going to attempt the last name. How do you overcome a barrier of initial CapEx investment by customer and change the mindset of cybersecurity from nice to have to need to have?
I'll answer this question, and maybe Ed, you can add, but at least, I would say that, traditionally everybody, have really kind of market many of the solution as, I guess you call it cost per seat, right? And, and that become very difficult to have a conversation, right? But I think once you move to more, a subscription or licensing model, right? I think that will really kind of help you. And I think that's part of the reason why many of the solutions that we bring into the market, right? It's actually allow our customer to really kind of use the solution based on, maybe it could be a monthly or yearly subscription, right? And so that is, it make that thing easier conversation. But the other one is, having conversation with the business owner, right? I think that we really need to kind of show how the impact on malware or some of the cyber attack can happen on the business. And not just talk about 0 and 1, right? Because some of these high level, C-level folks may not want to listen to the 0 and 1, but they really more care about the risk associated with the organization, the impact on the business, and the reputation of the business. So I think if you can have that kind of conversation, that will really kind of help the C folks to better understand why cyber tech had to be, cybersecurity had to be kind of part of your priorities.
Yeah, I'd like to add to that real quick, Richard. My experience, a lot of the cybersecurity investments in the industrial world are CapEx driven because of the fact that that's where the budgets are coming from the plant manager. And as such, they're looking for a cybersecurity solution then. Whereas at the corporate level or chief security officer, or chief information security officer, what have you, the IT folks are looking more based off risk, right? They want to have a security assessment. So you have to work together on both OpEx and CapEx when you do the cybersecurity solution, because like I said, the operators understand the consequence or the impact, but they don't understand the likelihood. So there is a little bit of a working together mode there that needs to occur. I hope that helps.
All right, Paige Heller has one. Oh, excuse me, Joe, go ahead.
Yeah, it's just a follow on to what was said. But one of the big differences is in the control system or operational world, there is a real impact on reliability and safety.
Yes.
And it's the reliability and safety that's in the CapEx. And that's the real issue here, is the plant manager may not care about the network, but he really cares about his plant staying up or the plant not having some type of catastrophic failure.
Good.
Yeah.
All right, Paige Heller right here. I see Texas One, I think it's Texas One or Tex One, is employing AI for ICS security. But control systems must work properly when things go haywire, and AI learns what is normal behavior. These seem incompatible. How does Texas One handle, or Tex One handle this mismatch?
Well,
Yes.
Richard will do that first, and then I would like to add some thoughts to that. So that's good.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So when we talk about AI, right, and how we utilize it, right, it's really more about our back end infrastructure, right? In the back end, we typically do a lot of research, especially on different type of threat in the industrial control environment. For example, like oil and gas or manufacturers and stuff like that. And so we're using AI technology really to understand how the different type threats are coming around and how it affects customer environment. And then we basically use that to create the right technologies and the right tools and signature to kind of address some of these threats as it's coming out, right? So that's how we utilize the AI technology on the TX1 product line. So it's more about the threat itself and how can we protect the customer some of this threat, because some of this threat can be very challenged to detect. And how do you better to understand and quickly create the right solution? So AI technology is one of the tools that we actually use to do that.
Yeah, and I would add to that I think that's great, Richard. But whitelisting is another way of looking at this, and it's something also that Trend Micro helps us with. Is our environments they're more static in nature in the way they communicate, and there is a even greater opportunity to whitelist. And I find that to be much more preventive as a solution sometimes, because we have to understand the nature of our threat actor here, and they're very sophisticated, and identifying and then going back to respond could be too late. So I'm a big fan of the whitelisting approach to identify the known good rather than taking this, try to identify all the bad, and keep the known good clean and stable and running, which is a way, the methodology of whitelisting. It's the opposite of blacklisting. The other thing is that AI is sort of AI is heavy mathematics and statistics, and it's about taking lots of machine information and turn it into terabytes of data to make more informed decisions. A lot of it is used for asset management, for like blade health monitoring or generator health monitoring, or to make predictive maintenance. And it has a lot of benefits for that, because we need to keep in order to schedule an outage, we know that this is the time to replace this particular component in the plant. So huge benefits of AI. On the cybersecurity piece, where I think some of the operators get nervous is, it's when it's autonomous and makes decisions and prevents. But you got to understand the nature of our threat actor too. So the maturity level of each of our customers is in a different place here with regards to AI and when they're going to use automation and orchestration or making decisions and being more preventive. But there's ways to deploy it in a responsible way. It's not like you're just throwing this all over the plant. I hope that helps.
Yeah.
All right, in the home stretch, we have one more question. Leonard Lee, what about the support of managing wireless networks at level 1 and 0? Think 5G private network with devices connected by wireless PLCs.
Yeah.
So, go ahead.
So the solution that we have today, right, our Edge IPS and Edge Fire actually can provide support for that type of wireless networks, but specifically for let's say 5G, right? We do have and work with many telco where we actually integrate security at their infrastructure itself, right? And so there's several ways that actually we actually helping customers to protect, at the network level using our Edge IPS or Edge Fire, or at the telco level. So we do have solution at that as well.
Yep, that's a good answer.
No, you're good. You approve of Richard's answer, Dad?
Richard's the expert. Yes.
Well, I want to just thank everybody definitely for participating on the panel, and everybody that was participating in this virtual conference. I know we ran a little bit long, a lot of great information. Truly thankful for what you guys do, just because there's a lot of challenges out there. Really appreciate exactly what you guys are trying to do and how you're thinking through solving problems, because it really is just about solving problems, keeping people safe, keeping companies productive, and all of the good stuff in between. And I'm telling you, from me to you, thank you very much. I don't have anything else to add. Lucian, let's talk a little bit about the winners.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, the panelists. So at this point, what I'm going to do is I've taken all the names from the Q&A throughout the sessions, put them into what we call the Wheel of Names. It's a website that essentially you just list a number of names and you roll it, and essentially it's gonna draw a random winner. Click to win.
I want Paige to win.
Here we go. All right, so I'm gonna reach out to Leonard. Oh,
Yeah, it is. It's Leonard.
Leonard Lee. Yeah. So he's had quite a lot of questions, so I'm going to reach out to him via email. I want to thank you, Trend Micro, for sponsoring this panel. Thank you, Scott, Joe, Ed, and Richard for speaking. And thank you for lasting until 6:30. If this was a face-to-face, we would have joined at the bar and probably talked some more direct questions.
Amen to that.
So look forward to see you in face-to-face at a future event. But for now, this concludes the program for today.
Thanks, everyone. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for attending.
Thank you all.
Bye-bye.
Bye. I thought it went well.